Hey, this is going to be a little different from the original episodes. What you're about to watch is an expanded version of the first 6 The Villains We Love videos, revisited, extended, and updated. I went back through your comments, pulled in the films and roles you kept mentioning, and folded them into the episodes. So this is very much shaped by what you wanted to see. Same villains, but deeper cuts and a much longer ride. Enjoy! We all remember that one villain we secretly rooted for. The one whose eyes told the story even before he spoke, who could make you uneasy and fascinated at the same time. For me, that actor was Tchéky Karyo. His face, his voice, his quiet intensity, they all said the same thing. Trouble is here, but you couldn't look away, you didn't want to. And the film that burned his image into my mind forever was Doberman, the 1997 French crime opera of chaos and madness. In it, Karyo played Inspector Christini, a violent, unhinged cop chasing Vincent Cassel's gang through a Paris of neon and blood. Christini isn't just a villain, he's a force of nature, a sadist wrapped in authority. Every frame he's in feels like it's about to explode. And that was the first time I truly remember Tchéky Karyo as the villain we love to hate, and somehow just loved. But long before Doberman, before the sunglasses and the manic laughter, Karyo was already building an extraordinary career. He was born in Istanbul in 1953 to a Turkish father of Sephardic Jewish descent and a Greek mother. His family moved to France while he was still a child, and it was there he discovered acting, first on stage, studying at the Theatre Cyrano, and later at the Theatre National de Strasbourg. He didn't start as a movie star, he started as a stage craftsman. And that's what you see in his film work, that grounded precision, the sense that every line, every movement is deliberate. His breakout came in 1982 with La Balance. It earned him a César nomination and made people take notice of this intense young actor who seemed equally capable of kindness and cruelty. Then came the international attention and one of the best-known films of his early career, Luc Besson's La Femme Nikita in 1990. As Bob, the handler who turns a street criminal into a secret government assassin, Karyo defined a new kind of villain, calm, elegant, and terrifying in his control. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't need to, you just know he's the one holding the strings. It's the same energy that would follow him through the 1990s, the calm storm. One of the most unexpected turns in Tchéky Karyo's career came with The Bear, directed by Jean-Jacques Annaud. It's a film that barely relies on dialogue, and that's exactly why Karyo works so well in it. Here, he isn't a villain at all, he's a part of a story that demands restraint, physicality, and presence. It's a reminder that long before he became iconic for playing darkness, Karyo already understood how to listen on screen, how to exist inside a moment without overpowering it. He went on to work with Ridley Scott in 1492 Conquest of the Paradise, opposite Gerard Depardieu, and then came Hollywood, where French actors rarely get their fair shot, but Karyo made his mark. In GoldenEye, he plays Dmitry Mishkin, Russia's defense minister during the chaos surrounding the stolen GoldenEye satellite. At first he's suspicious of Bond and Natalia, but quickly realizes there's a traitor in his own ranks. His tense confrontation with General Orumov adds a grounded, political edge to Brosnan's first Bond outing and helps sell the post-Cold War atmosphere of the film. In the core, one of those big end-of-the-world disaster movies, Karyo once again proves how valuable a strong character actor can be. Surrounded by collapsing science and impossible physics, he plays it straight, serious, focused, committed, and because of that, the film works better than it should. When he is in the room, even the most outrageous premise feels momentarily real. In Bad Boys from 1995, he went toe-to-toe with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence as the ruthless drug lord Fouché. It's easy to forget now, but back then that movie was the turning point for the body cop genre, and Karyo's performance gave it real danger. He brought weight, class, and menace, the kind of villain that makes a popcorn film suddenly feel like it matters. And then Doberman hit, the movie that felt like Quentin Tarantino had gone clubbing in Paris and shot a music video about cops and crooks losing their minds. Karyo steals the show. It's rare to see an actor so comfortable being monstrous but still magnetic. You're disgusted and fascinated. That scene with the baby and the grenade is pure evil. You can feel every molecule in that room is about to explode. If you had seen it, you know what I'm talking about. He became one of those actors we love precisely because they make evil interesting. Of course, Karyo didn't just play villains. He was too talented to be boxed in. He had a playful side, a human warmth that surfaced in the strangest places. Then there is Wing Commander, a late 90s sci-fi adaptation that needed every bit of gravitas it could get. Karyo steps in as a Wing Commander, bringing authority and calm to an otherwise chaotic universe of space battles and digital effects. Even when the film leans heavily into spectacle, he feels believable, like a real officer in an unreal world.
You just planted a jump through a gravity well.
That's what he always did best, grounding genre chaos with human weight. Karyo also showed a lighter, more playful side in Saving Grace.
I hate it here. Fishing is terrible.
A crime comedy that leans into charm rather than menace. Even in a film built around humor and eccentric characters, his presence adds credibility. He never winks at the camera, never plays it broad. He stays grounded, which makes the comedy work. And just by taking it seriously, his character becomes memorable. In fact, one of my favorite Tchéky Karyo moments isn't even a real appearance, or at least maybe it never was. For years, I remembered seeing his face in Emily, in that scene where Nino flips through his photo album. I could swear one of the photos was Tchéky Karyo. It's even mentioned in a few articles as an inside joke for French film fans, but when I rewatched the film, I couldn't find it. It's not listed on IMDb either, so maybe it was a blink of an eye you miss Easter egg that vanished, or maybe I just dreamt it. Either way, it fits him perfectly, the kind of actor who hones the frame even when he's not there. And Karyo kept working. In The Patriot in 2000, he stood alongside Mel Gibson as the French officer Jean Villeneuve. This time, a man of honor rather than malice. Then came Kiss of the Dragon with Jet Li, where of course he returned to the dark side, playing Inspector Richard. Another cruel, calculating authority figure. That's the thing about Tchéky Karyo. Whether hero or villain, he always commanded the room. And then there is Camelot, a cult French TV phenomenon where Karyo fully embraces a different energy. Here he steps into a world of absurdity, dry humor, and medieval parody, proving he's just as comfortable with comedy as he is with menace. Camelot shows a side of Karyo that longtime fans love, playful, self-aware, but still unmistakably him. In recent years, a new generation discovered him through the BBC series The Missing, and later its spin-off Baptiste. As Julien Baptiste, he played a very empathetic detective, older, wiser, more human, but with that same intense gaze. It was poetic, really. The villain finally turned investigator, searching for others instead of chasing his own obsessions. It showed the full circle of a career built on complexity and empathy hidden beneath the iron. Tchéky Karyo was one of those rare actors who never disappeared, even when he wasn't the lead. You could drop him into any film and suddenly it became more interesting. He was like French cinema's answer to Gary Oldman or Michael Ironside, actors who make darkness feel alive, who make you wonder what's going on behind those eyes. And that's why we loved him, because he didn't just play villains, he played people who happened to be villains. People who believed they were right. People who thought they were saving something, their pride, their power, their world, whatever. And that's what separates the cartoon bad guy from the great ones. The great ones makes us understand, even when we don't agree. Tchéky Karyo made you feel the villain. He made evil fascinating, and sometimes even beautiful. And he did it in 3 languages, across continents for over 4 decades, from French art house to Hollywood action, from war epics to detective series. He worked with the greats, and he left a trail of unforgettable performances and a lesson in presence. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes a whisper and a look are enough. He was the villain we loved, not because he scared us, but because he reminded us that darkness can be seductive, and that acting at its best makes us see the human behind the monster. So here's to him, the man who gave us villains worth remembering, the one we feared, the one we admired, the one we loved. Thank you for showing us that even in darkness, there can be grace.
Boy and his bird. Awful touching.
fuck's sake, die, will you? Give me that thing. Thanks.
There is something irresistible about a great villain. We love to hate them, because the truth is, a good villain can make a story unforgettable.
Paranoia is just reality on a finer scale.
They bring danger, class, mystery, and sometimes more depth than the hero would ever could. And today we are talking about one of cinema's most distinctive villain actors, a man with a voice like gravel soaked in whiskey,
Fair enough.
an aura that demands attention even when he whispers, Michael Wincott. If you ever watched The Crow, Robin Hood, The Prince of Thieves, or Strange Days, you heard that unmistakable voice that felt like quiet menace. He's the kind of actor who could read a phone book and still sound like he's plotting your demise. Michael Anthony Claudio Wincott was born in 1958 in Toronto, Canada. He grew up surrounded by art. His brother Jeff Wincott also became an actor. Michael studied at the prestigious Juilliard School in New York, where he honed a deep theatrical intensity that became his signature. His career began with smaller roles in the late 70s and early 80s, and by the mid-80s he was popping up in TV shows like Miami Vice and Crime Story. You might not remember his face from those appearances, but that voice, rough-edged and unforgettable, made him stand out.
I was trying to stall him, you know? I'm not backing out of our deal, Frank.
Michael Wincott truly came into his own playing villains, and a few actors could make evil feel so elegant, so intelligent, and yet so completely unhinged. His first major break came with Guy of Gisborne in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, next to Alan Rickman's flamboyant Sheriff of Nottingham. Wincott delivered something quieter, colder, a ruthless enforcer who looked like he would slit your throat just for wasting his time. That same year, he appeared in Ridley Scott's 1942 Conquest of Paradise as Moxica, a Spanish nobleman consumed by greed and arrogance.
You are nothing. You're bastards.
It's a grand historical epic, and yet Wincott manages to be one of his most human monsters, a portrait of conquest and cruelty wrapped in velvet and steel. He's also memorable in Oliver Stone's The Doors as Paul Rothschild, the legendary producer who shaped the band's first 5 albums. Then came The Three Musketeers, where he played Rochefort, the one-eyed enforcer of Cardinal Richelieu. It's a swashbuckling adventure, and Wincott chews through it with glorious menace, turning every sword fight into operatic moment of danger. That same year, he also appeared in Romeo is Bleeding, an overlooked neo-noir gem where Wincott appears alongside Gary Oldman, another actor who built a career out of unforgettable villains. The two of them together are electric. It's dark, sensual, violent, and criminally underseen. Honestly, I might have to make a full video just about that film one day. Then came what's arguably his most iconic role, Top Dollar in The Crow. Long black coat, long hair, dark humor.
But I chased him down, and he flashed right Steve into his fucking car. Oh, Steve, it's you, buddy.
Maybe we ought to just videotape this, play it back in slow motion.
And that voice, dripping with contempt. It's one of his most emblematic performances, a mix of rock star charisma and gothic horror. It's where I first noticed him, and like many of you, probably the moment I realized, this guy steals every scene he's in. Next, he took part in Jim Jarmusch's existential western Dead Man, alongside Johnny Depp. Minimalist, strange and haunting, it showed a quieter, poetic side of Wincott's intensity. That same year, Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days gave him another unforgettable villain role, Philo Gant, a sleazy music producer and black market dealer with a taste for voyeurism and control. It's a role that fits him perfectly, seductive, corrupt, and fatally confident. In Basquiat, directed by Julien Schnabel, he switched gears, playing real-life art critic René Ricard in a world full of ego and creative genius. It's a completely different kind of performance, subdued, introspective, and very real. In Metro, opposite Eddie Murphy, he once again played the bad guy. Not his finest hour, but still memorable from an otherwise pretty forgettable film. Even when the movie falters, Wincott never phones it in. That same year, he appeared in Alien Resurrection as Elgin, a space mercenary. Not a villain this time, but still channeling that same trademark danger and edge.
Oh shit. How you been?
Even when he's on the good side, you always feel like he could turn on you at any moment. Then came Before Night Falls, a powerful biopic where he shared the screen with Javier Bardem, Sean Penn and Johnny Depp. It's a reminder that Wincott isn't just a villain actor, he's an artist who can blend seamlessly with some of the best in the business. In Along Came a Spider, Michael Wincott gets to fully lean into modern-era villainy as Gary Sonigi, a character that plays like a war performance piece. He's theatrical, manipulative, and constantly shifting masks, which makes him deeply unsettling to watch. Wincott turns Sonigi into a villain who enjoys the act of deception itself, not just outsmarting the hero, but performing for the audience, relishing every second of control before the illusion collapses. In The Count of Monte Cristo, he appears as Armand Dorlac, a corrupt magistrate who represents institutional rot rather than brute force. He doesn't need grand speeches or violent outbursts. His power comes from cold indifference and a total lack of conscience. It's a smaller role, but classic Wincott, measured, venomous, and quietly hateful. In Hitchcock, Wincott makes a striking cameo as Ed Gein, the real-life killer who inspired Psycho. It's a chilling appearance, restrained, quiet, and deeply unsettling. And Wincott wisely avoids exaggeration. He plays Gein as an eerie, almost matter-of-fact presence, reinforcing the idea that true horror doesn't need to shout. Years later, he popped up on TV in 24 Live Another Day as Adrian Cross, a hacker and cyber terrorist. Older, calmer, but still carrying that dark magnetism. And of course, Wincott's voice alone is cinematic gold. He's lent it to animation and video games, from Treasure Planet, where he voiced the menacing Scroop, to Halo 2. Whenever you hear that deep, textured rasp, you instantly know this is a man who could make anything sound like Shakespearean villainy. There's also an interesting little what-if in Michael Wincott's career. Before Aria of Romance, The Iceman went into full production, a teaser trailer was shot as a screen test or a proof-of-concept kind of thing, starring Marcus Shannon as the notorious hitman Richard Kuklinski, and right beside him was Michael Wincott. In that early test footage, Wincott plays one of the mob associates, calm, commanding, and with that same dangerous magnetism he brings to every role.
Yeah, they're looking for the Iceman. Lucky you.
Unfortunately, when The Iceman moved into production, Wincott didn't return. The role went to a different actor, and while the finished film is still solid, I just feel it would have been better with a bit of Wincott in it. His role in Westworld is brief but unforgettable. As Old Bill, one of the earliest malfunctioning hosts, he embodies decay, age, and buried trauma. His voice, his physicality, and his haunted presence instantly ground the character, making Old Bill feel like a ghost from a forgotten version of the park. Minimal screen time, but strong impression. More recently, we saw him in Jordan Peele's Nope, playing the enigmatic cinematographer Antlers Holst, a perfect meta role for an actor obsessed with capturing the darkness. It's a smaller role for sure, but unforgettable, proof that Wincott still knows how to leave a mark with just a few lines.
Careful, Crowfather. I'm not here to put you out of your misery. Not yet.
But he's truly unforgettable as Death in Darksiders 2. As the leader and most powerful of the Four Horsemen, his voice performance elevates the character, adding depth and personality, and making Death one of the most memorable video game protagonists of his era.
I want all of you boys to be able to look me straight in the eye one more time and say, "Are we having fun or what?"
So why do we love villains so much? Because they give our heroes purpose. A great villain challenges the protagonist and us to go deeper. They test the moral balance of the story. They show us what we could become if we lost control. A film can have the most charming hero, the best action scenes, and the biggest budget, but if the villain isn't worthy, it all falls flat. We've seen it time and again with modern blockbusters, especially in the superhero era. But when you have an actor like Michael Wincott, suddenly the story has weight, it has class, it has danger, because you believe him. You believe that he could actually win. Michael Wincott may never have been the leading man, but he's the kind of actor who elevates every film he's in. He's the shadow behind the spotlight, and one of the most unforgettable villains in cinema history. This has been The Villains We Love, a CineCurious series celebrating the actors who make evil look good. If you enjoy this, stay tuned. We got plenty more devils, masterminds, and madmen to come. Until next time, keep loving the villains, because without them, there is no story worth telling.
Durch unerforschliche und scheinbar sinnlose
This is good. Very good.
There are some faces in cinema that you never forget. Eyes that seem to stare right through you. A presence that feels both magnetic and dangerous. Udo Kier is one of those faces. For decades, he's been the man directors call when they need someone who looks like he's seen the end of the world, and maybe even enjoyed it. He never tried to hide from genre cinema, he embraced it, from gothic castles to underground labs, from the twisted beauty of exploitation to the elegance of art house, Udo Kier made it all his home. And somewhere between horror, surrealism and camp, he became one of the most recognizable villains in film history. Udo Kier was born in 1944 in Cologne, Germany, during the very last months of World War II. The hospital where he was born was actually bombed shortly after his birth. His mother had to be rescued with him from the rubble. That's how his story began, literally surviving destruction. At just 18, he moved to London to learn English. That decision opened the door to an international career that would take him across continents and genres. He started appearing in films during the late 60s and soon became part of the wave of cult and art house cinema that shaped the following decades.
The blood of these whores is killing me.
Kier collaborated with some of the most daring filmmakers of his time. Werner Fassbinder, Lars von Trier, Werner Herzog, Dario Argento. He was never afraid to take risks, to play strange and dark roles, and let himself become a visual part of the madness unfolding on screen. Over time, his sharp cheekbones, icy blue eyes, and unsettling calm made him a cinematic icon, especially in horror and exploitation films. He became the perfect embodiment of stylish menace. So in this episode, I want to go through some of my favorite Udo Kier roles, especially the villainous ones that defined his career. This is obviously a subjective list because with more than 200 film credits, it's impossible to cover them all. So if I missed one of your favorites, please drop it in the comments. I would love to see which Udo Kier performances you love the most. Let's start where it all really began. Flesh for Frankenstein in 1973 and Blood for Dracula in 1974, both directed by Paul Morrissey and produced by D. Andy Warhol. In Flesh for Frankenstein, Kier plays Baron von Frankenstein, a twisted scientist with an obsession that's as erotic as it is horrifying.
Otto, look at it. Finally we find the right head with the perfect nasum for my male zombie.
And in Blood for Dracula, he becomes Count Dracula himself, a pale, sickly vampire wandering through decaying aristocracy. These two films are absolute cult classics, drenched in camp, blood, and strange beauty. They cemented Kier as the face of European horror, someone who could play pure evil and make it look like art. He also had a small but memorable appearance in Dario Argento's Suspiria. Even in a supporting role, his presence stands out. The moment he steps into frame, you just know something is off. Jumping ahead a bit, The Adventures of Pinocchio from 1996. Kier plays Lorenzini, the villain who tries to manipulate and control Pinocchio. It's technically a family movie, but his performance brings in that classic Kier energy, theatrical, mysterious, and a little terrifying. Then came End of Days in 1999. Arnold Schwarzenegger might be fighting Satan himself in that film, but somehow Udo Kier still manages to steal scenes as a sinister priest. Even when he's not the main villain, he radiates that aura, like he knows more than everyone else in the room, and you probably shouldn't trust him. In more recent years, he's continued to play these quiet, unsettling figures. In Brawl in Cell Block 99 and Dragged Across Concrete, both directed by S. Craig Zachler, Kier plays men who barely move, barely raise their voice, but the moment they appear, you feel the tension rise. They are not monsters this time, just men, but still terrifying. And that's the beauty of Udo Kier. He doesn't need fangs or a cape to be frightening. His presence alone does the job. Of course, Udo Kier isn't just a horror guy. He worked with Gus Van Sant in My Own Private Idaho, playing Hans, a tender, strange and lonely man among drifters. That role helped introduce him to American indie audiences. In Barbed Wire, Udo Kier shows up as Curly, a flamboyant, sleazy villain who feels perfectly at home in the film's neon-soaked post-apocalyptic chaos. With his trademark smirk and theatrical delivery, Kier turns what could have been a throwaway bad guy into one of the movie's most memorable presences. He leans hard into camp, adding personality and attitude to the action comic book tone, and proving once again that even in the wildest genre mashups, Udo Kier knows exactly how to steal a scene. In John Carpenter's Masters of Horror episode, Udo Kier is unforgettable as Mr. Ballinger, an eccentric and unsettling private collector whose obsession with forbidden cinema drives the story into truly dark territory. He hires a desperate theater owner to track down a legendary lost horror film, a movie so cursed it was shown only once, leaving madness and bloodshed in its wake. Kier plays Ballinger as cultured, sinister, and quietly unhinged, the kind of man who treats damnation like a rare collectible, and his presence alone makes the descent into obsession and hell feel inevitable. Then there is Melancholia by Lars von Trier, and he played in a lot of other Trier films as well, but in this one he plays the wedding planner, desperately trying to keep things under control as the world literally ends. It's funny, but it's also tragic, and that's something Kier does better than almost anyone, balancing absurdity and emotion. You might also remember him from Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Yes, he's in that. He plays the wealthy Ron Kemp, I love that name, one of the many people Jim Carrey's character drives completely insane. It's a small role, but again, it shows his range. He can go from experimental art films to slapstick comedy without missing a beat. And of course there is Blade, where he plays the vampire elder Dragonetti, a return to his bloodsucking roots, but this time with 90s leather and techno music. Even in a movie full of vampires, Kier still feels like the most ancient and dangerous one in the room. He also appeared in everything from Downsizing to The Painted Bird, and classics like Johnny Mnemonic, somehow always finding that perfect middle ground between disturbing and fascinating. It's a recurring theme in his career. Udo Kier has played Hitler or Hitler-like figures more than once. He's portrayed versions of the dictator in Iron Sky, the bizarre sci-fi satire where Nazis live on the dark side of the moon. He shows up again in Amazon's Hunters TV series, and even in My Neighbor Adolf, a film where he plays a man suspected of being Hitler hiding in South America. Only Udo Kier could make that character feel both eerie and oddly human.
Checkmate.
Let's step away from film for a moment, because one of my favorite Udo Kier appearances isn't even in a film, it's in a music video. In the year 2000, he appeared in Korn's Make Me Bad, directed by Martin Weiss. It's featured Brigitte Nielsen, Tatjana Patitz, Shannon Sossamon, and Udo Kier as a cold, emotionless scientist performing bizarre experiments on the band members. The video was reportedly Korn's most expensive at the time, and it looked incredible, a mix of cyberpunk and alien-style horror. When I first saw it on MTV back in the day, I was blown away. It felt like a mini sci-fi film, a love letter to Alien, and to that whole era of dark, stylish music videos. And of course, Udo Kier was right there at the center of it, looking like he'd been waiting his whole career to operate on Jonathan Davis.
This is good. Very good.
I'm Mr. Pat, and I'm back.
In Swan Song, Udo Kier delivers one of the most poignant performances of his career as Mr. Pat, a retired hairdresser facing the end of his life. This isn't villainy in the traditional sense, but it shows something just as powerful: vulnerability, grace, and emotional precision. Kier strips away decades of eccentric menace and replaces it with warmth and quiet dignity, reminding us that his screen presence has always been rooted in humanity, not just darkness. Kier's distinctive voice, that hypnotic, slightly accented tone, made him a natural for voice acting. He voiced characters in animation and video games, including titles like Call of Duty, and he also appeared in Command & Conquer 2: Red Alert.
Empty your mind and submit to my will.
Whether it's a sinister scientist or an evil mastermind, that voice instantly gives away who's in charge. Udo Kier is, without a doubt, a cult icon. Few actors have managed to move so effortlessly between horror, art film, and pure absurdity, and still remain completely authentic in every role. Why do I love him? Because he has that otherworldly presence, intense, elegant, and almost alien, but he also feels approachable. You get the sense that he's genuinely enjoying himself, no matter how strange or low-budget the production might be. He can work with authors like Trier or Fassbinder, then turn around and do a B-movie vampire flick, and still give 100% to both. Udo Kier left us at 81 years old, but his presence on screen will never slow down. He gave us decades of unforgettable performances, strange, fearless, elegant, and dangerous, and carved out a legacy that no one else could replicate. The world was always a more interesting place with Udo Kier in it, and his films will keep speaking for him long after the credits roll.
Come on, you meat puppet! Who pulls your strings? Piss off! Bollocks the plan, eh? I like this. The view's great up here.
Growing up, I never knew this guy's name. Most of us didn't. Back in the VHS era, when you picked up a movie by its cover or by some wild painted artwork, character actors didn't often have their faces on the box, and Brion James, he was the king of the uncredited promise. He was rarely on the poster, rarely the lead villain, and almost never the face the marketing cared about. But here is the thing. Every time I rented some random action flick, sat down, hit play, and he walked into the frame, I knew the movie had just upgraded itself. Because Brion James wasn't just a villain, he was the villain's villain. He was the henchman with more personality than the main antagonist. He was attitude walking on two legs. He was chaotic, funny, weirdly charming, and deeply human. Even when he had a shotgun, a cigar, and extremely questionable life choices. For all of us who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, Brion James was like a secret handshake. If you spotted him in a movie, you knew you were about to have a good time. Today, let's talk about the man behind all those unforgettable faces and characters. Brion James was born in 1945 in Redlands, California, and spent his early childhood in Beaumont, and this is where his story becomes almost mythic. His parents owned a small movie theater, and Brion once said, "My story is like Cinema Paradiso. Every night of my life since I was 2 years old, I ran movies. Just imagine that, you're 2 years old learning to walk and also learning how to change reels." His earliest memories weren't toys or cartoons, they were flickering projectors and the smell of film stock. After high school, he studied theater arts at San Diego State University, then he moved to New York, where he immersed himself in the stage scene, taking any role he could find, sharpening the edge of his voice, his posture, his whole presence. This was where he learned to command attention, even when he wasn't the lead. By the time he returned to Los Angeles, he became one of the most recognizable faces on television, even if nobody knew his name yet. He played roles in TV series like Miami Vice, and he had the perfect energy for it.
Nice night. Stars shining, moon's got that hazy look.
Slick, dangerous, and unpredictable, the show was full of stylish criminals and morally grey characters, and Brion fit right in. Whenever he appeared, he brought his ticking time bomb vibe and added weight to even small scenes. On Dukes of Hazzard, he often played tough guys or hired muscle, men who weren't exactly genius masterminds, but absolutely ready to start trouble.
All right, boss, you win. When do I get the clean plate?
You cannot talk about 80s TV villains without mentioning the A-Team. Brion showed up there too, because of course he did. And in a classic A-Team fashion, he delivered that perfect blend of threatening and slightly goofy, a villain who could absolutely beat you up, but might also accidentally blow himself up in the process. And in this particular episode, he even shares the screen with Michael Ironside, another iconic villain, which just gives you a warm, fuzzy, only the 80s kind of feeling. He also appeared in Mork and Mindy, The Incredible Hulk, and plenty more, but this is enough to paint the picture. Brion James was everywhere, and he always delivered. The early 1980s were a turning point for him. This is when he moved from that guy on TV to, oh damn, this movie is getting serious. Directed by Walter Hill, Southern Comfort is one of those films that deserves way more attention. It's gritty, atmospheric, and incredibly tense. Brion James plays a half-armed Cajun, standing against a National Guard unit caught in a deadly misunderstanding in the Louisiana Bayou. The movie digs into masculinity, survival, and what happens when you drop unprepared tough guys into real danger. Being armed doesn't make you heroic. Oh, and by the way, I'm working on a full video about Southern Comfort. It just deserves it, and it's dropping later this week.
You ain't got the balls.
Then came 48 Hours, also directed by Walter Hill. It's a much simpler film, a straight-up body cop classic, but one of the all-time best. Eddie Murphy's film debut, Nick Nolte at peak grumpiness. Brion James plays Inspector Ben Kehoe, a fellow policeman working alongside Nick Nolte's Jack Cates. Although he appears as part of the law enforcement team, he remains a largely background figure, but he made such an impression that he even returned in the sequel, Another 48 Hours, with a bigger part this time. This was the moment people finally started asking, who is that guy? And then came the role that immortalized him, Leon Kowalski in Blade Runner. You know the scene, the Void Kampf interrogation, the tortoise in the desert, the sudden violence, the buzzing intensity.
You look down and you see a tortoise, Leon. It's crawling towards you. Tortoise? What's that?
Leon is unforgettable, which is not easy when you're surrounded by Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, Sean Young, and Daryl Hannah, but Brion James stands shoulder to shoulder with all of them. giving one of the film's most iconic performances. He's physically imposing, but emotionally unstable, scared but dangerous, childlike, and very lethal.
Let me tell you about my mother.
In a movie filled with unforgettable characters, Leon still stands out. This role alone earned Brion James a place in sci-fi history.
Nothing is worse than having an itch you can never scratch.
And after Blade Runner, Brion James became a force of nature. He stacked roles like he was building a cinematic mountain. In Silverado, he gets to lean into classic Western villain energy, a rugged, gritty presence in a film stacked with stars like Kevin Kline, Scott Glenn, and Danny Glover. Even in the crowded cast, Brion makes his moments memorable. Crime Wave from 1985, the Wild Coen brothers and Sam Raimi collaboration, is a twisted slapstick crime comedy that leans hard into cartoonish violence and dark humor. Among its standout elements is Brion James as Arthur Codish, a deranged exterminator with a fondness for electrocution, paired with Paul L. Smith's equally unhinged Pharaoh crush. Together, they are hired to murder and frame an innocent security guard, turning the film into a chaotic mix of Looney Tunes energy, grotesque villains, and unmistakably Sam Raimi. In Enemy Mine, James shows up as Stubbs, a rough, intimidating scavenger who looks like he's been surviving the hard way for a long time. He's not around for long, but he leaves an impression, another gritty, dangerous presence that fits right in with James's run of tough, morally questionable characters. In Armed and Dangerous, Brion James switches things up with a more comedic villain turn. The whole film is a wild, chaotic spoof of action movies, and James leans into it beautifully, playing the kind of criminal who's both genuinely threatening and hilariously incompetent. It's another great example of how he could shift gears effortlessly, moving from scary to funny without ever breaking character. Steel Dawn leans hard into post-apocalyptic pulp, and Brion James fits perfectly as Stark, who is a tough, no-nonsense leader of the survivors, the kind of guy who's learned to stand his ground in a harsh, broken world. He sides with Patrick Swayze's character against the local bullies, and when things turn violent, he doesn't hesitate to step in. His death comes from doing the right thing, giving the character a quiet, tragic edge that fits Brion James perfectly. Arnold Schwarzenegger versus Jim Belushi in a Russia meets Chicago body cop thriller. Brion James brings sharp edges to the film, adding that unique Brion mix of menace and charisma.
And I ain't telling you shit.
He's the guy who pops up, stirs trouble, and steals a scene or two on his way out.
This is Plan B. Can I talk to you for a minute?
Not now. I'm busy.
Now for me, this one is legendary. Kurt Russell, Sylvester Stallone, and Brion James as the villainous Wreckin, with his unforgettable accent and even more unforgettable grenade in the mouth interrogation scene.
No, I'm sorry. Bye-bye, buddy. Bye, baby.
It's pure late 80s action cinema, testosterone, explosions, one-liners, and Brion is having the time of his life. He's terrifying and hilarious at the same time.
Bloke with me in prison, he's a governor.
Yeah, where's he now? Where's the governor?
In Striking Distance, Brion James plays Detective Eddie Ehler as a loud, abrasive presence you instantly want to push out of the room. He's the kind of cop who hates questions and hates being challenged even more, especially when things start pointing uncomfortably close to home. Not the killer, but a constant reminder of how hard it is to get the truth out of a closed system. He also showed up in Walker, Texas Ranger, because of course he did, playing Rafer Cobb in a two-part episode Lucas, a memorable guest role that fits him perfectly.
The lady's not interested. You got that?
In Tales from the Crypt, Brion James delivers a memorable nasty turn as Steve in the episode Split Second. He plays a jealous, controlling lumber camp owner who comes on strong, promises stability, and quickly turns possessive and violent when his authority is challenged. James gives the character an unsettling mix of charm and menace, making Steve feel dangerous long before things spiral out of control. It's a classic crypt tale, and James leans fully into the brutality, selling the episode's cruel irony and grim payoff. This one is Brion's rare good guy roles, or at least a sympathetic one. As General Munro, he gets to play authority instead of chaos, and he nails it. He's warm, grounded, and very funny. It was refreshing to see him not holding a gun or threatening the protagonist for once. And it proves something important. Brion James could play more than villains, he just knew villains better than anyone else. Phoenix Point, shot in 1999 but not released until 2005, is not a good film, but it was Brion James's final film, so I thought I'd mention it. It's a messy, low-budget dystopian sci-fi where everyone is fighting for survival. With a stronger script, it could have been a fun B-movie, but at the very least, it has Brion James. What makes Brion James special is that he never phoned it in. He could have been lazy, he could have just played another henchman, but instead he brought life to every role, even the small ones. He knew how to use his voice like a weapon.
I'm head dog on this farm.
He knew how to tilt his head, raise an eyebrow, or sneer in a way that said more than the script ever could. He carved a career out of personality, not out of leading man good looks, not out of prestige, but out of presence. Tragically, Brion James died of a heart attack in 1999, at just 54 years old. It was sudden, and it left a hole in the world of character actors. He left behind more than 170 film and television credits, and a legacy that lives in the memories of every kid who rented action movies from the video store and thought, "Hey, that guy again. Nice." Brion James wasn't just a villain, he was a cinematic landmark, the kind of actor who could appear for 2 minutes and elevate an entire film. The man whose presence was so strong you remembered him even if you forgot the title of the movie. He wasn't the star, but he stole every scene. He wasn't the hero, but it was impossible to hate him. And he wasn't the name on the poster, of course, but if you grew up in the VHS era, he became a part of your movie memories forever. Brion James wrote himself into film history not with fame, but with unforgettable characters. A legend of the shadows, the villain you always recognized, and one of the greats of character acting. Thanks for watching.
Well, here I am.
Some actors don't have to raise their voice to be terrifying. Some don't even need dialogue. They just walk on screen, stand there quietly, and somehow your brain goes, "Oh no, something bad is about to happen." And Tom Noonan? He is the king of that energy. He's one of the most unique villain actors of the last 40 years. Tall, soft-spoken, thoughtful, and capable of projecting either deep vulnerability or absolute dread. Sometimes both at the same time. He has played brutal killers, cyborg drug lords, satanic cult leaders, creepy hitmen, and in one of the great cinematic twists of fate, the most gentle Frankenstein's monster ever filmed. So today we are talking about Tom Noonan, the calmest scary man in movie history. He wasn't a typical villain guy, he wasn't an athlete, he wasn't a martial artist, he wasn't a Broadway ham. He was a writer, a composer, a playwright, a guy who came from the theater scene and carried that introspective energy into film. He's 6'5", but he uses his height very differently from most tall actors. He doesn't loom, he withdraws. He doesn't explode, he implodes. There is something almost shy about him. But that shyness turns into the most unnerving stillness imaginable when he plays a villain. He's like a haunted house that learned how to act. Wolfram from 1981 is an atmospheric urban horror about a series of murders in decaying New York City that uncover an ancient predator hidden within the city's forgotten spaces. Blending crime thriller elements with ecological and folkloric themes, Tom Noonan appears as a zoologist named Ferguson who identifies the weird hairs as belonging to an unknown subspecies of wolf. Seeing Noonan, this time bearded and playing a gentle, nerdy zoologist, is an interesting and welcome turn from his more unsettling roles. Easy Money gives Noonan a rare opportunity to lean into broad comedy. Playing Joe Pesci's character's friend, he shows a more playful and warm side and makes his character memorable even in a film packed with charismatic actors. In The Man with One Red Shoe, Noonan appears as a part of the film's absurd espionage machine, blending paranoia with deadpan humor. His performance fits perfectly into the movie's satirical take on Cold War thrillers, where everyone feels slightly unhinged. It's a great example of Noonan working within comedy and satire while still retaining that distinctive, quietly unsettling screen persona. His breakout came in the early 80s, but the defining moment, the moment Tom Noonan became, "Oh God, I feel weird just looking at him," happened in 1986. Before Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter dominated pop culture, there was Michael Mann's Manhunter, and in that film, Tom Noonan delivered one of the most chilling serial killer performances ever put on film, Francis Dolarhyde, the Tooth Fairy. Michael Mann reportedly cast Noonan after an audition where he barely spoke, barely moved, and kept his distance from everyone. People didn't know whether he was acting or just being Tom Noonan, which honestly makes it even better. What makes his Dollarhide so memorable is how quiet the character is. No ranting, no screaming, no cartoon psychopath nonsense. Just a wounded, deeply broken man trying to evolve into something monstrous. It's a performance built on stillness. The way he's breathing, the way he looks away, the way he says almost nothing but communicates everything. And if you look at later serial killer portrayals, especially in the 90s, you can see shades of Noonan's Dollarhide everywhere.
Francis? No. Not Francis. Francis is gone. Francis is gone forever.
He set a template that others borrowed from. Then Tom Noonan swung into completely opposite direction for RoboCop 2. Playing the drug lord turned cyborg abomination Kane. The fun thing is that he's terrifying before becoming a robot. The calm, spiritual tone, the cult leader cadence. He sounds like someone who would offer you enlightenment but also absolutely murder you if you ask the wrong question. And then of course his brain gets ripped out and put into a nightmare stop-motion robot monster. Classic family entertainment. RoboCop 2 was a step back from the first one, but Noonan's villain made it memorable. Small roles, big impact. This is where Tom Noonan shines. He can steal a movie or a show with 90 seconds of screen time. In The Pledge, he appears late in the film, delivering a performance so calm and ordinary that it becomes disturbing. It's a masterclass in how to be terrifying without doing anything.
I guess, will you tell me your name?
In Synecdoche, New York, in Charlie Kaufman's surreal epic, he appears almost like a ghost, an observer, a mirror, a presence. And even there, Klein's entire world feels heavier when he walks in.
And I've learned everything about you by following you. So hire me, and you'll see who you truly are.
Tom Noonan also made memorable appearances across television, where he often turned short guest roles into small, haunting events. In The X-Files, Law & Order, CSI, The Blacklist, he brought that same quiet intensity to characters who might have been forgettable in lesser hands.
You bring me my heart, and maybe I'll tell you more.
Even in a single episode role, Noonan has a way of making you lean forward. And when he did get multi-episode arcs, he made them feel special. In 12 Monkeys, his mysterious, almost prophetic presence added a surreal layer to the show's already twisted time travel logic. In Damages, he played a troubled, fragile man whose emotional unraveling gave the series some of its most quietly devastating moments. And in Hell on Hills, he disappeared completely into the role of a preacher overshadowed by violence and trauma.
Yeah, no angel.
In 1995, Michael Mann brought him back again for Heat. And even though he's barely in the film, he's unforgettable. He plays Kelso, the quiet contact who helps to get info for the bank heist, and this is where Noonan's presence becomes almost supernatural. He doesn't raise his voice, he barely gestures, but you instantly know, this guy's for real, and he's so calm that it becomes intimidating, like he knows things nobody else knows. It's one of those performances where the less he does, the more powerful it becomes, and that's Tom Noonan's entire magic. But one of the reasons fans love him is because he's not only a villain. His Frankenstein's monster is weirdly sweet, lost, confused, emotional. Kids who grew up on this film remember him as one of the first monsters they felt sorry for. Anomalisa from 2015 is bizarre in the best way. He voices every single character in the film except the two leads. Every man, every woman, every kid. It's like a one-man emotional universe, and he nails it. This man really has range. Now let's talk about one of my personal favorites, Last Action Hero. Tom Noonan plays the Ripper, a menacing axe-wielding murderer from the fictional Jack Slater universe, and he's absolutely having fun with it. This is Tom Noonan with permission to play, to exaggerate, to lean into the absurdity of being a movie villain inside a movie that knows it's a movie. He's scary, but also theatrical, dangerous, and also cartoonish.
Now we've played this number before, haven't we, Jack?
And when he switches between his grim movie persona and his real-life actor version, it becomes a perfect meta joke.
Place the Ripper.
And yes, while we are talking about Last Action Hero, there's absolutely no way I'm skipping Charles Dance. Of course, I'm working on the Charles Dance episode as well. How could I not? The man steals every scene with a raised eyebrow.
Have a nice day.
And because this film deserves a proper second look, I'm also working on a Last Action Hero rediscovered video, dropping very soon. It's one of those movies that was misunderstood when it came out and absolutely deserves the love it's getting now. Ty West cast Tom Noonan as a patriarch of a satanic cult in the House of Devil, and the casting is brilliant. He doesn't rush, he doesn't shout, he speaks softly with warmth, and that's exactly what makes him so terrifying. It's a perfect role for him, a polite man who happens to be arranging human sacrifices. Classic Tom Noonan. The funniest part of all this? Everyone who meets Tom Noonan says he's exceptionally gentle, thoughtful, and soft-spoken, a writer at heart, a musician, a person who would rather talk about philosophy and theater than violence or horror. One of his most famous quotes is that acting villains is, just like wearing a mask everyone is already afraid of. He sees acting as a psychological experiment, not a performance. He also wrote and directed indie films that won Sundance, like What Happened Was, proving he's more than just a tall and scary guy. Tom Noonan is not frightening because he's big. He's frightening because he understands silence, he understands stillness, he understands the power of being the calmest person in the room and letting the audience fill the quiet with dread. His villains are not loud, they are not flamboyant, they don't monologue, they don't pose, they just exist, and that somehow is more terrifying. He can do exactly the same thing in a gentle role and somehow make you want to hug him instead. That's range, that's artistry. So that's Tom Noonan, the gentle giant of nightmares, the quiet philosopher of horror, and one of the most fascinating character actors working today. From Manhunter to RoboCop 2, from Heat to Monster Squad, from The House of Devil to Last Action Hero, he's built a career out of turning silence into chaos and calmness into fear. And of course, stick around, the Charles Dance episode is on the way, and the Last Action Hero rediscovered video is also coming very soon. Let me know what your favorite Tom Noonan role is, and if you have one I missed, drop it in the comments. Thanks for watching.
I am the dreadful menace, the one whose will is done. The haunting chill upon your neck, I am the conundrum.
Charles Dance is probably best known these days for playing Tywin Lannister on Game of Thrones, and it's hard to overstate how massive that role was. There is an entire generation for whom everyone watched Game of Thrones, and among that enormous cast of unforgettable characters, Tywin stood out from the moment he appeared on the screen. He was absolutely a villain, but the kind you could understand. There was a cold, logical consistency to everything he did. You didn't have to agree with him, most of the time you definitely didn't, but you could see the reasoning behind his worldview. That was one of the strengths of the early seasons. The villains felt human and nuanced.
You're not as smart as you think you are.
And Tywin may have been one of the most finely drawn of them all. But Charles Dance is so much more than Tywin Lannister. His career stretches back decades, all the way into the early 80s. He even popped up in a James Bond film, For Your Eyes Only, in a small but fun role. And today I want to go through some of my favorite Charles Dance performances, the villainous ones of course, but a few other gems as well, because this man has built a unique career around elegance, precision, and the kind of menace that very few actors can pull off. Of course, if I missed your favorite role from him, pop it in the comments. But before we get to the movies, I have to mention one piece that isn't technically a role at all, the BBC's 2014 Winter Olympics trailer.
I will tell you when to jump, and I'll dictate how high.
Charles Dance doesn't appear on screen, you only hear his voice, but it is absolutely chilling. It's only about 90 seconds long, but it showcases one of his greatest strengths, that incredible voice. Deep, rich, elegant, and delivered with perfect clarity. He recites a cold, poetic monologue over athletes battling brutal winter conditions, and it's honestly haunting. It's the kind of thing that makes you want to stop what you're doing and just listen. I highly encourage everyone watching this video to check it out. I dropped a link in the description. I'm going to start with Benedict from Last Action Hero, because it's just one of my favorite roles from him. This is one of Charles Dance's most iconic villain roles, and what makes it so brilliant is that he completely understands the kind of movie he's in, a self-aware, meta-action parody, yet he plays his character absolutely straight. No winking at the camera, no silly exaggeration. Instead, he leans into the menace with total seriousness, and that contrast makes him hilarious, terrifying, and endlessly quotable.
I've just shot somebody! I did it on purpose!
And of course, that crisp British accent gives every line an extra flavor. The writers clearly knew exactly what they had, because they gave him some of the best lines in the entire film, fully aware that no one could deliver them better. Is the perfect embodiment of a stylish, razor-sharp villain brought to life by an actor who elevates every scene he touches. And here is a fun detail. Dans helped design Benedict's collection of glass eyes himself. The different looks, the unsettling colors, those playful little touches were partly his creation. He actually worked as a graphic designer before he became an actor, and you can see that visual imagination sneaking into the role. In White Mischief, Dans portrays Jocelyn Hay, the Earl of Errol, a real-life figure surrounded by scandal, privilege and moral rot. He plays the role with effortless charm and underlying arrogance, embodying a man untouchable by consequence. It's a different kind of villainy, seductive, decadent and socially protected, and Dans captures that dangerous mix of allure and corruption with precision. Next up is Alien 3, David Fincher's famously troubled but strangely fascinating chapter in the franchise. It's an odd film, no question. Stark, bleak, constantly rewritten, but it still contains some genuinely powerful moments. One of those moments is Charles Dance as Clemens. He's not a villain at all here. In fact, he's one of the few truly grounded, humane characters in the entire story. Clemens has this quiet, wounded dignity, a tragic history he carries with him. And Dance plays it beautifully. His scenes with Sigourney Weaver give the film an emotional center it desperately needs. Even though he isn't on the screen for long, he leaves a real impact. Fincher himself reportedly loved Dance's performance, seeing him as one of the film's anchors, which makes Clemens's fate hit even harder. It's one of Dance's strongest non-villain roles, and one of the reasons Alien 3 still has a loyal group of defenders today. Space Truckers, directed by Stuart Gordon, is an unapologetically absurd sci-fi pulp, and Charles Dance clearly enjoys every second of it. As Captain McCann, he leans fully into the camp without sacrificing authority, delivering a performance that's self-aware yet oddly intimidating. Whether appearing in human form or encased in a full bodysuit, Dance owns both versions of the character completely. This is camp at its purest. Then there is The Golden Child, a fun little fantasy comedy from the 80s with Eddie Murphy. The film itself is light entertainment, but Charles Dance once again proves that he always understands the assignment. He knows exactly what kind of movie he is in, and he leans into the villain role with absolute commitment. Elegant, sinister and perfectly controlled, he elevates the material simply by showing up and taking it seriously. He's one of the most memorable parts of that movie. In The Phantom of the Opera, Charles Dance plays Eric, the disfigured musical genius who lives beneath the Opera Garnier in Paris, quietly pulling the strings of the opera house from the shadows. Dance brings a restrained, tragic gravity to the role, emphasizing Eric's intelligence, isolation and simmering menace rather than outright monstrosity. Charles Dance joins the Underworld saga as Thomas, the cold and calculating coven leader of one of the last remaining vampire covens, appearing in Underworld Awakening and Underworld Blood Wars. As Thomas, Dance brings a sense of old-world authority and cold political menace to the role, embodying the rigid traditions and internal power struggles that threaten vampire society from within. In Dracula Untold, Dance plays the Master Vampire, an ancient creature with a predatory presence. It's not a huge role, but it's incredibly striking. He sits in the shadows, literally and metaphorically pulling the strings of the entire plot. Dance gives the character a cold mythic weight, as if he's been alive for centuries and has seen empires rise and fall. A small but deliciously intense performance. Another brief but memorable role is Commander Denniston in The Imitation Game. He's not a villain, but he's a perfectly believable bureaucratic obstacle, polite, rigid, frustrating and absolutely blind to Alan Turing's genius. Dance nails the type, the kind of authority figure who slows everything down simply by refusing to understand what's right in front of him. It's a small part, but he makes it count. And of course, there is Gosford Park, Robert Altman's wonderful ensemble mystery set in a British country estate. The film is full of incredible actors, and Charles Dance fits right into that world effortlessly. He plays Lord Raymond Stockbridge, bringing his usual precision and aristocratic elegance to a story packed with secrets, class tension and quiet resentment. It's not a flashy role, but it adds another shade to his career, the refined, upper-class figure who seems perfectly composed on the surface, while all sorts of unspoken emotions simmer underneath. And just to acknowledge a few more performances without going too deep, Lord Veterinary in the 2010 TV adaptation of Terry Pratchett's Going Postal, this is a role perfectly suited to him. William Randolph Hearst in Monk, a beautifully understated performance. He voiced Emperor Emir Var Emrys in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, one of the most acclaimed RPGs of all time, and honestly, it's a perfect casting. Emir feels like a ruler who's always 3 steps ahead, someone you respect and fear at the same time. Jonas in Godzilla King of the Monsters, a morally complex eco-terrorist. Guy Perron in Jewel in the Crown, the role that made him a household name in the UK. Lord Mountbatten in The Crown, a warm and surprisingly gentle performance proving his range. But before film and television, Charles Dance spent years shaping his craft on stage. He joined the Royal Shakespeare Company early in his career, performing everything from Shakespeare to Chekhov. A quick mention, Dance also directed a feature film, Ladies in Lavender, starring Judi Dench and Maggie Smith. It's a gentle, elegant drama, nothing to do with villains or action, but it shows another side of his creative personality, refined, sensitive, and surprisingly warm. If there is one phrase that sums up Charles Dance's screen presence, it's this: the prestige villain. He has this unique ability to look absolutely immaculate, perfectly tailored suit, perfect posture, perfect diction, not a speck of dirt on him, while being utterly menacing. It's elegance weaponized. It's aristocratic danger. Even when he's not playing a villain, he has a presence that fills the frame. You feel the room change when he walks in. Very few actors can project intelligence, power, and menace with such economy of movement and such control. That combination, elegance, authority, and the streak of cold steel, is what made him Tywin Lannister. It's what made Benedict iconic. It's what makes even his small roles memorable. Charles Dance isn't just a villain actor, he is the villain actor filmmakers call when they need the role done with class, precision, and sheer presence. If you want more on Last Action Hero, I have a full video about it. Benedict gets a lot of love there. And for more great villain actors, check out my Tom Noonan episode as well. And of course, more villains and movie rediscoveries are on the way. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this updated version of The Villains We Love. This covers only the first 6 episodes, but I plan to revisit every one I've made so far, and the ones still to come, shaping them around your suggestions and requests. As always, thanks for being here, and thanks for watching.